And welcome to Career Coaching After Hours. I'm John Davidson, your host and writer and YouTuber. This is episode 16. Is it March 2025 already? I can hardly believe it. And this is actually sort of a follow-up. I actually did a full read-through of all of these slides, and the musical track actually doubled itself. So I'm going to do this follow-up as kind of an official overview of the topic. And so I hope you'll go back and take a look at that one if you'd like a little bit more color commentary. But in this episode, I was actually really excited to put this together because last week I did 5 different brackets, kind of March Madness style, trying to map out who I think are some of the most iconic, most amazing employers across the Pacific Northwest. And I define that as Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and BC, essentially, Vancouver, BC. So this is actually kind of a riff off of an element of one of my old videos. I believe it was a teaser for episode 9, where I started to map out what I thought might be a really neat career fair now that those have kind of come back post-COVID. And then I thought, well, what if I put some of these great employers into brackets? And eventually 2 brackets became 3, became 4, became 5. So thank you for joining me on this kind of light episode. As I mentioned, there's a little bit of a technical glitch where I did go through all 160 in the first run through of it. I won't do that in this one. I'll kind of provide an overview. So a little bit more of a compact episode. But this series, as usual, is audience agnostic. So I may or may not be your career coach. And it's a way for me to kind of meditate and circle back to some of the content that I've done, whether that's on LinkedIn or on Medium or what have you. But I'm not likely your career coach, so I'm not attempting to give you specific career advice. But if you find some of my topics helpful, fantastic. But you might want to consider consulting your own professional. And as usual, everything is to the best of my knowledge as of March 2025. All right. Definitely check your sources. Be careful. Buckle up. All right. So what I did in this last week here in March is map out kind of a unique way to think through, well, who are some of the greatest employers? And several episodes back, as I mentioned, what I tried to do is map out what I thought would be a really neat, kind of a cool, innovative career fair, as opposed to maybe just having some of the very biggest employers, maybe the Microsofts and the Amazons and the Costcos and the Nordstroms, and kind of start to circle back to highlighting some of the more mid-size organizations that are headquartered across the Pacific Northwest. And so you'll see in some of these thumbnails, I actually narrowed it down, if you can call it that, to 160, and it was very painful. So to actually dig through many different types of industries, whether you see retail or online shopping, high-tech, GeekWire 200s, Fortune 500s, restaurants, all kinds of very iconic, amazing brands. This was not easy to do. And so I started essentially with 2 brackets. That led to a 3rd one, and I couldn't really stop after that. And that led to a 4th and a 5th bracket. But yeah, here's a shot here. This is the 26 that I threw out several episodes back, mapping out, I think, some amazing brands. But specifically, I pulled out the Fortune 500. So you won't, for example, see Microsoft or Amazon on that list. They're great. All kinds of great Fortune 500s based in the Pacific Northwest. Amazing. Nike being another one. And yet, well, there's so many great employers and organizations that don't fit just in that bracket. And that list doesn't change much year by year by year. So what I did, being that it's March Madness, is I took a 32 spot bracket, and times 5 is 160. So not much narrowing down, but many times when I see lists of best employers, it stops at 25 or 50 or 100. There's a lot of times not a whole lot of diversity. So it seems like either it's a list of big companies or just nonprofits, or maybe almost like a randomized list of companies who have maybe gone through some survey process or something along those lines. But if you've ever lived on the West Coast or in the Pacific Northwest, you've probably heard of a lot of these brands. And one of the neat things about doing this is we have so many iconic brands that folks would know anywhere in the country. So I'll just rattle off a few of the really big ones. You've got Nike, you've got, of course, all of our great sports teams, the Mariners, the Seahawks. Down at the bottom right, you've got Costco, Amazon. So even in this first bracket, what I tried to do is mix it up a little bit. You'll see some great nonprofits like the Urban League, the Gates Foundation, PATH. And so, I mean, wherever you are in the world or in the United States, you probably have a whole range of amazing employers, not just one particular area. And I've lived in several areas of the United States, and I would say by far the Pacific Northwest has the most diversity, where you see high tech, you see blue-collar organizations, white-collar organizations, as it were, blue-collar jobs, white-collar jobs, green-collar jobs. A lot of what I would call kind of the more pop culture-ish type organizations as well. Wizards of the Coast, Pokemon, Sub Pop, Powell's, Funko, organizations that have a lot to do with gaming, Valve and Bungie, and speak quite a bit to maybe the quirky or the nerdy or the geeky culture we have in the PNW. And oh look, there's Starbucks in the top left. So I'll try to scooch through these a little more quickly than the previous run through here. But same thing, what I did with the second bracket, green, is tried to map out even some events too. So one thing that I hardly ever see in these type of rankings, for example, you'll see there's Bumbershoot and Emerald City Comic Con. You almost never see the cultural type events in these sort of lists or rankings or stack rankings, what have you. But there's so many great employers, even if you factor out some of the really big ones. Yet, if you look, for example, in the top right, two of my favorite retail brands, Nordstrom and REI, right there at the top. So I didn't particularly rank these based on size or dollars or lives saved or what I think is impact. What I tried to do is kind of create this diversity across the different 5 brackets, so you can kind of have some fun with those. And I very much hope folks make their own brackets, maybe consider who they would want to work for. And I do a lot of this kind of free association with clients, where we try to think through maybe not just looking for open jobs, but which organizations really do seem interesting. So you'll see in this bracket some great credit unions. There's BECU, Forestry, there's Weyerhaeuser, of course, huge in the PNW. Some additional nonprofits. There's Fair Start and Earth Corps. And I even put some of the cities up against each other, because who doesn't want to see Spokane duke it out with Boise? But again, these aren't competitions in any way, and some of the pairings may seem a little bit weird or random because I did them. So I tried to make some sense of these. So for example, there's Microsoft and Nintendo. It's the battle in Redmond. And for some reason, I thought Dutch Brothers would make sense to go with Chateau Saint Michel. So there you go. Coffee versus wine. Why the heck not? And there's Holland America Line over there on the left in the purple bracket. Cruise ship line taking on the king of salmon burgers, Trident Seafood. So there you go. But you even see there's OfferUp and High Spot, a couple of GeekWire 200s, and who couldn't want to put some of the epic food service organizations, restaurants. There's McMenamins taking on Dick's Hamburgers, so there we go, and Tillamook and Dairy Gold. So as I started to do these lists, it became both easier and more difficult, as in I started to think through more of these organizations that, again, maybe don't pop up in Seattle Business Magazine rankings or Puget Sound Business Journal rankings, which can be great. They have some really neat lists. But it seems a lot of these organizations don't quite make a particular list for whatever reason. But I think if you sat down and built some brackets, it starts to become pretty clear we have dozens and dozens of just amazing organizations throughout the PNW. And I really mean that. Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Vancouver, BC. Again, I'm using that definition where some folks might think PNW would extend out to maybe Montana, Hawaii, Alaska. Maybe I'll do some brackets for them as well. But bracket number 4, Hamlindigo Blue, one of my favorite colors. Hope you appreciate the reference. Who wouldn't want to put Vancouver, Washington versus Vancouver, Canada? There we go, Vancouver versus Vancouver. But one of the ones I thought through, I could not believe I actually didn't think about even like treetop apples here in the state of Washington, how crucial that is. So I put them up against Talking Rain. I've been to the Talking Rain facility. So there you go, shameless plugs. And please, every organization on this list, please send me some free samples. I'd love it. Stanley and Hydro Flask, please do so immediately. But also, if we look at the PNW, it's such a hub for retail. So of course we've got Nordstrom and Costco, and then we've got, even in grocery in that realm, Hagen and Rosars, just some phenomenally epic retail brands, including REI. And if you take a look here in the gold bracket, there's Eddie Bauer. So I found this incredibly difficult, and I would estimate most folks would, and I do this professionally, is to try to help folks think through maybe the mission, the vision of what an organization does, to try to look for maybe some of that alignment with what folks might want to do next in their career. So gold bracket, and believe me, there are lots of organizations that I left off, and so I've got a Post-it with about 2 more brackets ready to go. So maybe I'll knock out a few more brackets here later this year. But even here in the gold bracket, the final one, I couldn't believe I had almost forgotten Eddie Bauer myself, and Arc'teryx, which are great brands, great products. And I've met Killer Dave, Dave's Killer Bread, and Fran's Bread, and Aaron Baker's Breakfast Cookies. I mean, I eat as many or more carbs than most people, but we have these amazing organizations that do keep us fed. So really appreciate what they do. But then so many iconic brands across bookstores, drugstores. There's Benbridge, Jean Juarez, Les Schwab. It's interesting how we have these names of human beings that started a great brand and have cemented their place in the PNW. And of course we have Albertsons. I couldn't believe that it's not that I forgot about them, but I was like, I need to make another bracket to pop them in there. Of course, Fred Meyer has deep PNW roots. And Ladro, one of my favorite roaster, I put them against Delano's. And if you've ever been to a Made in Washington store, I mean, my gosh, you can't help but get some Liberty Orchards or Chuck or Cherry's products. And you'll see Kenworth trucks up there as well. So again, I had a lot of fun with this, but here's kind of where the previous version of the episode was kind of pulled apart. I don't think 160 is nearly enough. So I really am interested to hear what folks think in terms of why certain organizations maybe were left off, or who you might choose as far as the matchups and the pairings. There were some industries that, now that I think about it, I probably should have given some more attention to. So this is not an exhaustive list by any stretch whatsoever. Some of them were certainly my choice, whether they're smaller organizations like, let's say, Archie McPhee or Boo Radley's, some really kind of quirky shops, to some of my favorite nonprofits out there where I might be a little bit biased. But 160, very difficult. And so I challenge folks here, think through maybe some brackets of your own or some rankings of your own. And if you're in career search mode or career exploration mode, I think one consideration might be, don't let the tail wag the dog. Maybe instead of looking at just open jobs on, let's say, LinkedIn or Glassdoor or Indeed, maybe consider looking through the lens of where you'd want to work, or some really great organizations who are saving the world, or building spaceships, building rockets, delivering products that you like, or that maybe resonate in terms of your mission and your value system. Nothing wrong with thinking outside of the box, or burning the box, or just getting rid of the box, and thinking locally and then across maybe region and nationally and even globally. But absolutely let me know who you might pick. I appreciate you joining me. So hopefully no technical glitches in this version of episode 16, but I do hope you enjoy the new music. Not a whole lot of citations here in this episode since it's essentially me citing myself. And feel free to reach out, but a lot of great musicians. This is a new mix, so I appreciate all of them. Definitely feel free to check those tracks out online. Support your local artists and your YouTubers. We'll need all the help, all the love we can get. And thank you for joining me. Thank you to my clients. Thank you, supporters. Thank you, students. And you, the viewers. So, hope your March was amazing. I'll see you in April, and drop me a line. And as usual, please like, subscribe, and comment. All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.